I'm wearing the baseball cap on backwards because I was just doing a Barry Drumall skit on the Thomas Sheridan Arts channel, and that's why I had this Special Forces baseball cap given to me by a Special Forces person. On reverse now, because that's, I'm not Barry now. Did you ever see that film? Was a CB4? They turned the baseball cap around backwards. That's a satanic inversion of American values. Anyway, yes, I've been following this Pachamama thing. And yeah, well, here's my breakdown on that. I kind of knew what was going on right away. If you haven't heard about it, there was some ladies from South America gave statues of Pachamama, who was like a fertility goddess, and like in all paganism, she's triple-headed, and to the Pope, I think it was Pope Francis, claiming it was the Madonna of the Amazon, and it ended up in a church called the Santa Maria in Rome, with another one of the statues in a kind of a reliquary in the side of the church, off the side of the church. And anyway, someone made a video, and they went into the church. They stole the two pagan statues from the church, and they walked outside and they threw them into the river Tiber. Now, I'm coughing from screaming. I will not use profanity, but the river Tiber is probably, well, it was and could still be, the greatest museum on earth, because the iconoclasts and the rest of them later on threw the statues into the river Tiber, all the great artworks of pagan Rome. And some of them were recovered around the Renaissance, and that's why we have some incredible statues from the BC period, staggering artwork from 3,000 years ago in the Vatican on display now, or in around Rome, because in the 19th century people started pulling, or sorry, in the Renaissance, people started pulling them out, and that's where the Renaissance came from, the Renaissance of pagan art and culture and ideals. Now, they threw it in the Tiber. Now, all around the world, Catholics are celebrating this. They're saying that these guys were heroes. These guys did what they were supposed to do. There shouldn't be pagan idols inside a Catholic church. The whole Catholic Mass is pagan. Anyway, but they don't know this. Now, let's think about who did this, okay? Did you see how well dressed they were and how smart they looked? They were not average altar boys or priests. They were professionals. Now, when Catholicism first came to Rome, it wasn't Catholicism. It was the first form of Christianity, which was Second Temple Rabbinical Judaism. It moved into the Roman culture through the army post Constantine, and it didn't really take off. And one of the reasons it didn't take off was because they didn't have the festivals, the Roman pagan festivals, like Lupercalia, the solstice, all the other festivals they had in ancient Rome. I can't think of them now because Barry Drummore's in my brain, but you know what I'm talking about. And so what they did was they renamed them as Saints' Days or Holy Days, and they basically took a huge amount of paganism, including things like the Vestal Virgins, and they turned them into nuns, and lots of many other things. And they took pagan, outside Rome, they took pagan goddesses like Breed and turned them into Saint Bridget, and so on. Saint Winifred, you saw my film on Saint Winifred's Well in Flintshire in Wales, and they had to do it because Europeans could not convert to Second Temple Rabbinical Judaism. It just wasn't suited to them for lots of reasons. It's okay if you live in the Middle East, but not if you live in Europe, especially the more northern you go and away from the desert. So what happened was, when about 1100 years ago, the Vatican gave you the present, well, before Vatican II, but gave you what is a Catholic today, right? This is after years and years of being basically Jewish, Hebrews. Now, a group called the Black Nobility, if you haven't heard them, very interesting. What the Black Nobility are is they exist mostly in Rome and in Venice, but their main power force is in Rome. And what the Black Nobility were the controlling behind the scenes function of the Catholic Church, who kept it rabbinical. They're the ones who select popes. They're the ones who really select pope. The Black nobility families, very, very powerful. The Piso family being the most famous of all. They control loads of Italian industry and everything else, and these are extremely powerful. They're aristocrats, but they're probably descendants of the ones who came from Syria and Palestine and Judea, and brought this stuff over into Lebanon and brought this stuff over into Europe, the Second Temple Rabbinical Judaism. And their job is to say, well, the lay Catholics can have their paganism. They can have their paganism in the form of the Catholic masses and so on like that, the Catholic feast days. But behind the scenes, it's still very much Second Temple Rabbinical Judaism. And that's why when they select the Pope, he wears a yarmulke. That's why he wears a yarmulke. Because he is the rabbi. He's the chief rabbi of Rome and the Holy See. He's the head rabbi. And he's really working for them. And that's why they can have all the sex scandals in the world that you can possibly muster. It doesn't affect what really goes on behind the scenes. Because it's not until you're up to possibly the level of cardinal that it's like the Masons, that you find out that basically you're in a rabbinical sect. Now, I'm not anti-Jewish or anything like that. I'm just saying this is what's going on. The Second Temple Rabbinical sect are evangelicals, so they're sort of offshoots, bastard offshoots of Orthodox Judaism, and so but they had to create this Christian crusade thing in order to push the thing forward within the Roman Empire. And that's why the Roman military, the leadership went mad for it, because it makes morons out of people. Now, as I said, all the statues, when the iconoclasts and all those types first took over, and there was also the Vandals threw statues in the rivers as well, and they were pagans also. So let's not blame it completely on the Christians, but that's who just the majority of them. The Christians were happy when the Vandals threw the statues into the Tiber, because they were doing them a favor, really, and they couldn't get the blame for it. And so that's all. What you saw was, in that video, were members of the Black Nobility, a pair of aristocrats. There was obviously two people filming. Went into the church at dawn. It was at dawn. Did you notice that? It was at dawn, at sunrise. And cast the idols into the Tiber. The Pachamama idols into the Tiber. This was interesting. While the lay Catholics around the world are going, oh, it's great, they took the pagan idols out of our church. The rabbinicals know the power of paganism. And they know they actually used a pagan rite. In paganism, it's very common to create an idol or a sword in Nordic paganism and to cast it into the waters as a symbolic offering to the goddess of the river. And that's what those guys were also doing, because they know that the powerful archetypes exist. So those of us watching that are affected by it. What those black nobilities who took this Pachamama statues out of figurines out of the church did, because it was in the Church of Santa Maria, the Virgin Mary, and the Virgin Mary was the creation of a goddess to bring paganism, keep paganism within Catholicism. That's the Virgin Mary's function, she's the goddess. And so they threw the statues into the Tiber as an offering. Well, they knew it, not as an offering from them, but they know it's an offering at dawn. Everything was picked very ritualistically. These black nobilities are basically rabbis who understand the power of pagan ritual. And that's why they invented the Catholic Mass, because they knew that this thing had incredible power over European people. And that's why, when Protestants talk about the Vatican being Antichrist, yeah, there's a lot of truth to that. They are Antichrist because they're they're not the Second Temple rabbinical Jews who created Christianity at first were pro-Christ. The second ones were Catholic, bringing the Catholics wouldn't survive. Christianity would not have survived in Europe unless it did become pagan, and so that's why they call them. If you look at Martin Luther and his 98 or 96 thesis that he nailed to the door of the church, if you read them, they're really, you think there's some, you're kind of brought up to believe there's some kind of radical thing. All they talk about is the nature of plenary indulgences, which is praying for people who are in limbo or in purgatory, sorry, to get them out of purgatory and into heaven. It's just purely an administrative document regarding canon law. And because he was excommunicated over that, he was able to fully go about bringing Christianity back to Second Temple rabbinical Judaism. If you're a Protestant right now, you're actually Jewish. Your religion is Jewish. The King James Bible is a Jewish Bible. It's not a Christian Bible. It's the, as I said, as I call it, the Northern Talmud. Now, this is your own business. I don't care what you worship. Your gods are your own. I believe in freedom. Like any pagan, I believe that everyone should be allowed to worship their own gods, or God, or be an atheist. It's great. Go for it. But I'm just telling you, I'm not putting you down or anything. I'm just saying this is what you're dealing with. Now, well, I would put you down if you're blindly obsessive about it. So that's all that was about. That was the black nobility. I'm convinced of it. The way they were, you watch the video again. They have that kind of arrogance when they walk. That they weren't too religious nuts. They would be kind of panicking, heavy breathing. They have this kind of way about them that people who've been pampered and raised as aristocrats all have. It's a very difficult thing to describe, but just watch them. Watch the guy in the video. Watch his body language. It's very aristocratic. It's very, very, that comes from having to never worry about anything. And that was the Roman black nobility throwing them into the river. But they deliberately released that video. Now here's the important part. They deliberately released that video to tell lay Catholics that it's over. It's over. They were indulged in a pagan ritual, the casting of the pagan idols into the river as a veneration and a gift to the river goddess. It's a mockery of sorts. They're making fun. And when the regular Catholics around the world going, those two men who took this Pachamama statue out of the church of Santa Maria and threw it in the river, and they're heroes, they're laughing at those lay Catholics. That's what that's all about. So that's what that's all. The Pachamama thing was deliberately set up to make that video by, in my belief, the Roman black nobility in order to show, to sort of like perform a kind of a mockery on ordinary lay Catholics, both by putting it in the church to begin with and also casting it away. And this also ties in with the psychic weather video I did the other day of the amazing changes that are happening in Catholicism as it moves towards Islam and becomes Islamic. And the black nobility, when it becomes Islamic, the head imam of Rome, Mohammed Evangelista, will wear a yarmulke, because the black nobility, Second Temple rabbinical families will still be calling the shots.